What do you think of that? Scholastics or scholars who study Buddhism in society and its effects, how it's revealed socially. That's another way. All the great teachers at Harvard, Princeton, Columbia, University of Indiana, Cal, Berkeley, lots of Buddhist studies programs in the United States. Virtually every major university has a Buddhist studies program. So, and they've been there a long time. You can track the ones Princeton back to 1920, 1930. Harvard as well. So Buddhism's been with us in our society a long time. The empiricists or practitioners, those people, the instrumentalists, they come to Buddhism because they do something for them. I think that's one of the main reasons people are attracted to Buddhism. It's pragmatic. It offers a solution to the end of some of your suffering. You may learn to meditate through chanting, as we did earlier, go through a nice ritual in which you offer light to someone you love. That's pragmatic. That's instrumental. That helps you, and it helps the others around you. So that's another approach. You didn't need to know a thing about the Eightfold Path to do that light offering. And I'll wager a lot of you didn't. It's not necessary. It's nice if you do, but it's not a requirement. Dr. Matsunaga used to talk about all the people who chanted Shoshinge in Japan. And he'd say that we knew more about the Shoshinge than they did. I can't tell you how many times he'd say that, and he'd just roar when he said that. I don't know if it's actually true or not. But that was his fun story. So some of the people who you may think of, we think of Thich Nhat Hanh, who is a guy from India. I think he's kind of a formalist because he really ties in ethics to everything he does. He's also a poet, so he comes from the creative side, the entertainment side. He wants us to feel good about his writing and really enjoy it. The Dalai Lama, on the other hand, is kind of a cultural verse. It's really about the religion of kindness. He adapts very well to the United States. And so he sees into it. He's a good teacher for us. So he and Thich Nhat Hanh shared a podium, I think, for the spread of Buddhism in the Western world. The first American convert to Buddhism was a man named Henry Steele Olcott, O-L-C-O-T-T. He was a colonel in the American Civil War. He saw a lot of pain. At the end of the Civil War, he was assigned to the assassination investigation attempt on Abraham Lincoln, not attempt, but the successful assassination of Abraham Lincoln. He got interested in Buddhism through various readings, most likely those of Emerson and Thoreau. And eventually, through his studies, met a woman named Madame Blavatsky, who many of you have heard of. Together, she was an immigrant from somewhere in what we think of as the Soviet Union today. And she claimed to have visited Tibet and some other places and had studied Buddhism extensively. They founded what is known as the Theosophical Society shortly after the Civil War. And eventually, they traveled to Sri Lanka, where Matt Fisher spent some time. And they were very influential. Alcott was extremely influential. He took vows when he was there. That's where he was converted. He wasn't converted here, he was converted there. And he took vows and became a formal Buddhist. So even though he advocated a slightly different philosophy, which included some occult teachings, he was primarily a Buddhist. And he met a man named Anagarika Dharmapala when he was there. And Dharmapala had been seriously engaged with the resurgence of Buddhism in that area because he discovered that many of the original Buddhist temples in India were tended by Shaivites, followers of Shiva. So he set out to restore Buddhism. He was a formalist. So he taught very rigid interpretations of the original Shakyamuni's words. So just hold that in. I don't want to make this too complicated. But at the same time, it's important to see how this got into. So the next step of this is how it comes back to America. You've seen some of it. There were other people involved. Whitman, for example, was a follower of the Transcendentalists, and very much influenced by this thought. If you read Whitman's work, you can see the idea of interconnection, which is a primary principle of Buddhism, all through his work. So you'll find it in his work. You can find some pragmatic effects of it in Emerson, and you find more of the mystical, environmental, transcendental effects in Thoreau. But flash forward to Alcott and Blavatsky and Dharmapala meeting in Sri Lanka and the resurgence of Buddhism. Then this great event happened in the late 1800s, probably never replicated again in the history of the United States, maybe not in the history of the world, has such a whole country dedicated its efforts to making its presence known in the world. And that was the Chicago Exposition in 1893. And there they also held what is known as the World Parliament of Religions. So Dharmapala came to the Chicago World's Fair. Alcott was there. He was a hit. The ideas were alive at the time. Frank Baum, the writer of The Wizard of Oz, lived in Chicago at the time. And he was very, very aware of all of this happening. Simultaneously, in Japan, the Japanese Buddhists had been invited to come and make a presentation.